All right. What up, people? Andy McCabe here. This is the Restoration Rebel Roundtable for the 19th of July, 2023. But it ain't going to be much of a roundtable unless someone else shows up. Well, let's get going, see who shows up, and we'll go from there. What do you say? Let's share this. Share this. So this is the thing we do. Well, this is the thing I do every week prior to the roundtable, and it's important. There are four things here that if the majority of restorers did these things, our industry would be a very different place. The levers of power, the leverage that we do or don't have, that our insureds do or don't have, would be very different if we all practiced these things. Now, last week, we went a little bit into a rabbit hole about price fixing and collusion or whatever else came up that an attorney got a hold of me and said, hey, there's a discussion happening right now in the group that could get some folks in trouble for price fixing or whatever else. And I know the RIA is very afraid of this thing called price fixing or whatever else. Even though we all collude we all agree to abide by this pricing scheme that was invented by Xactimate, but somehow that is not price fixing. All of us using the same price basis for our work and the way we estimate, that somehow is not price fixing, but us talking about overhead and profit and appropriate markups is somehow price fixing. I don't get that. But regardless, these four agreements, if applied industry-wide, could change the landscape in a positive way, in my opinion. So this is why every week I start with this list. Let's go into it. Agreement number 1, I will protect the value of my services. Offering free services only serves to erode the value of similar services industry-wide. This goes to the assumption that on behalf of insureds or adjusters, that we should produce estimates for free. There used to be a quid quo pro, whatever, I don't know how to say that properly, where if you gave estimates to adjusters, these comp estimates that people come up with, that you would somehow either be in line to get that work from the contractor who you're giving that comp against, or that adjuster would somehow see favor in you and give you more work in the future. I, for one, never received any quid quo pro, any I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine work exchange or referrals or jobs from adjusters for the hundreds, if not thousands, of estimates that I created on my free time, right? On company time, providing a valuable service, which I then gave away to adjusters. So this willingness to give free estimates, give free comps, or significantly undercharge for the comp bid that you're being asked to give, just erodes the value of all of us who are out there every day estimating. All of us out there who are writing good sheets in good faith on behalf of insureds, or contractors. So agreement number one, protecting the value of your services is charging appropriately for those services, not giving them away for a steep discount just because you think you might curry favor with a carrier or an adjuster. Agreement number two, I will practice incredible transparency. I will explain the claim process to my client. I will not hide pricing details or falsify reports. I will never communicate with an adjuster without also communicating with my client. This goes to the heart of why adjusters and carriers still to this day get away with the bullshit they get away with, because they do these things and they ask us to do these things as contractors, as restorers, out of the light, in the dark, in the shade, not in full view of the public or the insured. I've been admonished more than once when I was working for franchise operators. I've been admonished by adjusters more than once for sharing my information, especially when it comes to my initial estimate or my initial MIT invoice, sharing those things with the insured. Because once I did that, the game was up, the gig was up. I showed the estimate as I thought it should be before running it by the adjuster. And the adjuster said, don't do that, because I wasn't giving him the opportunity to knock me down. I wasn't giving him the opportunity to circumvent that estimate or that invoice, and wasn't giving him the chance to approve that document before sending it to the insured. That's why I advocate all communications should be done with all materially relevant parties involved. There should never be an email that only is between a contractor and an adjuster. Ever, 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 ever. There's also this thing where, well, people will send estimates to insureds that don't have any pricing on them. And that is equally nefarious, in my opinion. You need to be 100% upfront. If you are afraid to show your pricing, that's a signal that there's something wrong with how you are conducting your business. And explaining the claim process. The carriers do not want the insureds to understand the claim process. They do not. They prey on the fact that most insureds are like just assuming that the adjuster is there to help, their insurance company is there to help, they're gonna do right by them. And when we explain the process, we explain these things are the things that should happen, and then those things don't happen, or the adjuster goes off book and tries to pull some shit, the adjuster gets mad at us because we actually explained how the process should work, and who should be mad is the insured at the adjuster for not operating in good faith. So, agreement number 3, I do not believe in competition. The restoration companies in my market are part of my community. I will be an active member of my community. It is our unbreakable unity that will create the change that we strive for. The number one enemy we have as restorers is other restorers. When those other restorers see us as competition, see us as barriers to their success, and when we fight amongst ourselves, we are doing the carrier's work for them. When we allow ourselves to be separated, when we allow ourselves to be divided, guess what? We are easier to pick off when we're alone, especially when we feel alone. We feel unempowered and alone. We're the only ones, the adjusters. I heard it today. A client of mine said, the adjuster said, you are the only one that charges for these things. You're the only one that changes your pricing. You're the only one that adds 10 and 10 to these things, to roofing. Yet none of my other contractors do X, Y, Z. Well, that's a clear indicator that Obviously, other contractors do. They just want to have us isolated, cut us from the herd, and then take us down, because alone we cannot succeed. So embrace you, excuse me, embrace your fellow restorers. Embrace your neighbor in your market, because guess what? They're not competition. They are your brother and sister. They are there to help. There will never be enough of us to answer the call of need that happens on a regular basis. There will never be enough restorers to respond to all the disasters that happen on a day-to-day basis. The lie that we're told is that we have to compete for this work. But that nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is we can do more together. Number 4, I'm willing to walk away from any project, client, or contract that is not compatible with my values and stated mission. No relationship is worth losing money, sleep, or my humanity. And early in my career, this item in particular destroyed me as a human being. I was constantly trading bits and pieces of myself, of my soul, in exchange for what I thought was the right thing. I was routinely lying to clients about how the process worked, about how pricing goes. I was routinely finding myself in situations where just acting immorally, because it was all justified. It was justified, was a means to an end. But guess what? That end was the end of my career. I imploded as a human being. I destroyed my career. And I've spent the last 12 years trying to rebuild me, who I am. And along the way, hoping, praying, fighting and clawing, trying to fight for this industry and bring this industry back from where we were. Reality is we've allowed ourselves to be taken over by money, big corporations, and allowed ourselves to make business decisions that are contrary to our own personal and business needs, wants, and goals, in exchange for playing along, playing nice, playing the game. So there you have it, the 4 agreements. I don't know what got into me just now, but I felt like it needed to be said. No one else is here. I do have one thing to talk about, but let me see here. What's up, Sean? Good to see you, man. Yes, also help them get as educated as possible. That is our number one weapon is an educated consumer, an educated client. Excuse me. Ugh, liquid death is killing me. What's going on here? So this week I sent a letter to an adjuster that I'm pretty proud of. And it speaks to our approach to claims as a whole, collectively. Had an adjuster sent over the latest, the same bullshit. We don't pay for, what was she on? She said, we don't pay for third-party sketches, right? There's a line item in Xactimate for third-party sketches, and we actually got one done for this client. They don't pay for that. And what was the other thing? They didn't pay for, I'm going to pull up this email off. I'm going to pull it up off screen because we don't need any bullshit here. And this lady wasn't even, she wasn't even the adjuster. She's a third party. She's a consultant. Big company that does a lot of claims handling. At the end of the day, I can only make recommendations. Can only make recommendations. What did she say? She said she wanted to. Okay. So carrier, here's her words. The carrier will not pay for the charge for a third party to provide the sketch. And I sent her my ESX file, and she took the liberty of opening it and then editing it and then sending me back my own ESX that she had edited. It was laughable. I didn't even bring it up. The carrier will only pay for 5 days of drying. The equipment and the so I will try to push 6 days of drying through for part of this loss. Blah, blah, blah. She wanted to pay $28,200 on a bill for $31,400. Not a huge thing. And then through later on in the email chain, she said she tried to justify her cutting the invoice. I am unable to justify 7 days of drying, considering all the damaged wet materials were removed and should not take 7 days to dry out metal framing. That obviously wasn't the only thing being dried. Most of carriers have now accepted 5 days maximum of dry time, where it used to be capped at 3 days. 2 piles of bullshit in one sentence. So this is the game. And so I responded back. I said, while I appreciate our collaboration on this matter, I must express my disagreement with the seemingly arbitrary reductions in this invoice. Could you kindly provide an explanation as to why Hanover will only pay for 5 days of drying? Additionally, I would appreciate clarification on the policy provision that excludes job costs, such as subcontracted services for estimating and sketching. It is not my intention to cause any difficulty. Rather, I adhere to a policy of requiring reason and justification for all actions. I hold our carrier partners, such as yourself, to the same standard. And here's where I threw them a bone here. If you are requesting a $3,180 reduction, I kindly request payment in full within 15 days in return. If this is within your authority, please confirm. And I didn't want to give him $3,100, so I said, I am prepared to offer a $2,500 discount on the condition that the client is reimbursed for their mitigation costs within the same time frame. We will not be making any revisions to the Xactimate document, and the $2,500 reduction will be clearly indicated as a carrier concession on the revised invoice. Now, those of you who have been following me for a little while will hear that this is a marked change from my arguably combative approach to these types of situations. So what I'm trying to do is set the stage that, hey, we're here, we're both professionals, and these are my standards. I adhere to a policy of requiring reason and justification for all actions. I provided in that estimate, in that mitigation invoice, I provided justification and reasons for every single line item, every single one. It was a beautiful, I think one of the best MIT invoices I've ever written, just because I've taken it upon myself to really, I'm gonna have to thank Alina Wilson for this. There needs to be a note on almost every single line. Some reference to why that line belongs in that invoice or in that estimate. I think if we all took that same approach instead of just piling line items in, I think we would have a different reaction from the folks who are then looking at these things. Let me read, since no one else is here. I'm going to read my initial email to them. And the purpose of this email I'm thinking about putting together a template, a bunch of templates for folks to just copy this, because I think, yeah, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I guess I am. I think this was really, really well written, and it touched all the right points. So I'm not going to show it on screen, obviously, because it's got names and stuff in it. I don't want to do that anymore. So here we go. Dear so-and-so, I hope this email finds you well. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Andy McCabe, the founder and operator of Claims Delegates, a reputable claims consultancy specializing in assisting restoration contractors nationwide. Setting the stage. This is who I am. This is what I do. At Claims Delegates, our primary goal is to provide expert assistance to restoration contractors in writing invoices and estimates using Xactimate. Just that one paragraph signals to her, this is what I do for a living, and I'm serious about it. We are honored to have recently been hired by my client to fulfill their requirements in property damage mitigation and restoration projects, including writing estimates and invoices. We understand the importance of maintaining open lines of communication and building strong client relationships. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time with any questions or concerns you may have. Stating who I am, what I'm doing here, and then sending them the message, hey, if you some of this came from what's it, Eric Voss, Never Split the Difference. This back and forth, even though this is an email, it's a one-way communication, there's still the feeling that there's some back and forth. I've set the stage, and this last paragraph gives them the hey, I'm here to, if you have any questions or concerns, please let's address them right away. Okay. Attached, you will find the invoice and Xactimate backup. Invoice, Xactimate backup, two different documents. I told my client, this is what you need to make an invoice to your client with this amount, and we're going to use the Xactimate as a backup. Attached, you will find the invoice and Xactimate backup for the emergency mitigation services provided by my client on behalf of their client for loss claim number blah, with a total now due of $31,430.25. Additionally, the documentation of my client and his team's progress and drying efforts using Encircle is available for your inspection. I sent her the Encircle file. It's all open book, complete transparency. Please find our ESX file attached for your review. We are not trying to hide anything. We are being upfront. We are setting the tone, stating our case, presenting our evidence. We're not hiding anything. Here we go. The insured/client has been copied on this communication, and they were. Should you have any questions, client, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. Once again, the adjuster, contact me directly if you have any questions. Their in client, contact me directly if you have any questions. And then I address the adjuster. Adjuster, if you or the desk adjuster at Hanover would like to discuss this matter, I'm available at your convenience. Again, this is two times in the same letter. I've said, if you want to discuss this, I am available to you. Please let us all know when we can expect Hanover to reimburse the client for these mitigation costs, which were necessarily and reasonably incurred in compliance with the provisions of their insurance policy. Notice I am not playing a PA here, but I used policy language in a way to state that the amount is up here, and here is why it's owed. Necessarily and reasonably, I should have used the word actually, incurred in compliance with the provisions of their insurance policy. Thank you for your attention to this matter. P.S. Oh yeah, there was more than one claim at this particular address. I'll be contacting you under separate cover for the other losses at facility. Please consider me your primary contact for my client in these matters. So with just this one letter, I anticipate this letter will lead to the swift and equitable closure of 3 separate claims. And you notice there was no what wasn't in this letter? There was no accusation. There was no threat. It was a simple, direct statement of my position and an invitation to start a dialogue. Now, she never called me. I actually called her and left her a voicemail. She never called me. We have yet to speak on the phone, but we were able today to get this thing buttoned up, at least the mitigation portion, with a concession of, we made a concession, $2,500. Some purists out there in the group are going to say, well, why'd you give up anything? Well, the reason is because the older I get, the more I realize that life is short and we only have so much time. And that time is valuable. The time for the insured, the time for my client, the contractor, and my time, frankly. I could have drugged this out, and I could have more than likely gotten this thing paid in full. But it wouldn't have been paid in full next week. It would have been weeks down the line. And then everyone involved in that process would leave with a bad taste in their mouth. Now, since I wrote this, I'll stay pay. Since I wrote this, I'm looking for people to come in the room. Since I wrote this estimate or invoice, I know, and I looked at the documentation, and I have a pretty good understanding of the setup of my client. I had a pretty good idea that this $2,500 was not going to hurt. Yeah, it sucks giving up money, but as soon as I went to my client and said, hey, this is a deal, what do you think? He said, do it. Why? Because he understands, like I understand, that cash, yes, $2,500 is a lot of money. It's not an insignificant amount of funds, but that $28,000 check that's going to arrive next week is so much better than a $31,000 check in 2 months. So much better. That cash flow and that churn is incredibly important. And the carriers know this. But I think it's worth pointing out what I did in the second email. I'm going to reread this portion here. We will not be making any revisions to the Xactimate document, and the $2,500 reduction will be clearly indicated as carrier concession on the revised invoice. And it was. That's how it read. The invoice came through with one line, invoice due, and then another line, carrier concession, negative $2,500, total at the bottom. The reason I was very careful about how I did that is because I did not want to put my client in the position that next time we see this adjuster, she's going to assume, well, if you took this sketch fee, off your last invoice. So guess what? You never get to charge for that fee again. And you showed your willingness to go from your dry time, your documented dry time of 7 days, down to 5 and 6. Well, guess what? I just put that, if I did that, if I showed the willingness to revise my actual invoice, my Xactimate document to reflect that change, I am letting the adjuster know that now they are in charge of how much I can charge in the future. And I'm never going to put an adjuster in charge of something, frankly, they have no business being in charge of. Okay. So I think this was a huge win for my client. And I'm looking forward to buttoning up the next two. So we had a MIT, and then the repairs on this one. We got a MIT and repairs on another one. And then there's a third one that I think was wrongfully denied, but I'm gonna button up those first two claims and then hit the third. Looks like we have somebody in the room. Joseph Spears is in the room. Oh my God. And Lou. Of course, Lou. What is up, gentlemen? Happy Wednesday.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Hang it. Oh, you're injured. If memory serves me, you are broken. What is
I am
happening?
sitting on my ass too much, and it's causing my hips to disintegrate and cause me massive pain.
You got to get one of these fancy desks. Look at this.
I gotta get one
I'm
of
gonna
the fancy
stand up.
chairs.
There
No,
you
I need to
go.
get one of them. I need no, I need yeah, I need one of them desks that lets me stand up occasionally. And also,
That's what I'm
because
doing.
yeah, pretty much my right where my hips and my spine combine, there's two little, you don't realize it, but there's two little flaps right there that helps your hips kind of rotate, and it's like dagger twist nonstop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You ever done this? Pulling your. I can't do it on the screen. I'm gonna show you a stretch when, I'll show you a stretch that I had the same problem, and the standing desk helped, but I find if I stand for a while, that's no good. Too long, that's no good either. So I gotta do a stretch. I'll sit down, I'll stand up, and just keep it moving. I'm gonna read Restore Right. I don't know who the name is, but restorers need to be upfront at the beginning of the service where they send to their client and CC the adjuster to what their scope of work is. I agree. Oh, there's more. This should prevent someone else from forming an opinion on facts at the end of the job. If they have an opinion to anything they believe is not necessary, then that's when restorers have the chance to clarify and settle it at the beginning. In an ideal world, I agree. We don't always have that opportunity. So if at the end of service, there was no comments, rebuttals, etc. during the service period, but at the end they do, then now you have a leg to stand on by letting them know you had a chance, but you didn't. I agree. I agree with that approach. Yeah. What's up, Joe? What do you think? You been listening at all, or you just catch it?
It's funny that you're talking about the whole taking things away and then you don't have a leg to stand on, because I mean, I get that. I mean, I do. I even when I worked for my W-2 job doing code blue stuff, like I've had Sedgwick and I've had Allstate pay for it and stuff. It's really hit or miss nowadays, and it's just mainly based on the adjuster for the most part. But I actually just today had a massive argument with I won't say argument, but an adjuster from Liberty Mutual try the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, so line item 1 was the 3D sketch, line item 2 was the true sketch fee. And their response was, this is a voluntary business expense that was not requested by Liberty Mutual. Once again, this was not, so both of them were voluntary, not requested by Liberty Mutual. And I said,
that's the most common line.
Yep. I said, you are correct. These are voluntary expenses incurred by the company and passed on to the client as part of the cost of doing business. The matter reporting process, while being roughly 5 years old, is still viewed as new technology, and not everyone has invested in the time and material. However, that does not negate the fact that it is a service rendered and part of their SOP.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like 100%. That.
No, Liberty's not going to like anything. They're trained to hack and not give a dime. I think Liberty, along with State Farm, are on the top of my list for fuck you, I'm going to sue you. They're on my fuck you, I'm going to sue you list, because that's just the level to which the ridiculousness, you can't even talk to these folks. You can't even reason with these folks.
I had to answer 4 different times in this estimate why the door slab needed to be detached and reset when we were installing new flooring, like laminate flooring in the kitchen, and why like we were doing like clean the hardwood floors in the entryway. And they're like, why did the doors need to be detached and reset? I was like, because even when I told them, I was like, the first one was because even when I clean the door's not full, the threshold's not fully exposed. Like, how does that make sense?
Did you have an F9 note for that on those items?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's you. Yeah. I just took. I went to Elena Wilson gave another seminar this week or last week, and it was all about just don't make it a treasure hunt. Make them just put everything in the estimate. And don't send separate attachments. Everything is attached to that estimate.
My favorite note was, I used a line item. The line item I used was Let me look it up real quick here so you guys can be on the same page as me. It was it was I gotta find my kitchen here. Here we go. Kitchen flooring. Clean floor and prep for overlay of subfloor.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
the adjuster's response was, no subfloor is being installed, thus a prep for subfloor overlay should not be needed.
OMG. Did you read what I said? Did you read? Oh, that's these folks don't know how to read anymore.
I said subfloor and slab are effectively the same thing. It is the substrate the flooring is being installed on. And CLN FPS is to account for cleaning the substrate to provide a clean surface to install on. Considering that the floor has been exposed for many days or weeks, naturally, dirt and such are being deposited on the floor and needs to be cleaned and prepped. A review of the line item activity simply shows this is for a floor installer laborer and general purpose cleaning chemicals, and the quality is broom clean, vacuum, or possible damp or mopping. Therefore, regardless of what the line item description reads, it is the proper line item to account for the work being done, as the flooring installer will be the one prepping the floor, as opposed to, say, a general CLN laborer cleaning the floor in a post-construction cleaning atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was
did the insured see this?
Oh yeah, the insured was super happy with the estimate, and my client was both super happy with it. The only issue, like, I opened up my statement with saying, you know, so-and-so has contracted out the estimate creation to me and thus has requested me to reply to the concerns of this estimate. I'm a level 3 Xactimate expert and a certified pricing consultant, and thus I'm fully trained and able to defend the estimate creation. However, regardless of any defense, I am not arguing coverage or what should or should not be covered. I cannot agree to pricing negotiations beyond those related to input error, as I am not a public adjuster and cannot act in such negotiating pricing. If after the explanations for the line items used are explained, if you feel they're still not warranted, a direct conversation with the client or the contractor will need to be conducted independent of myself.
Mm.
And the only error in the entire estimate, which was a stupid error, I'll admit that, was I had plywood down for the dumpster, and instead of doing 2 by 4 by 8, you know, for 2 sheets of plywood, I charged F for the whole square footage of the sketch, and it was like $2,000. I was like, I'll change that. That's fine. But like, they were trying to hassle me on. I had like 18 hours of labor supervisor hours on there. And they said, for a job like this, we will allow overhead and profit, which is meant to factor in business expenses and profitability of the repairs. And I said, business expenses allotted to the overhead and cover things like office space, internet business, and other things that a company would have to pay regardless if a job came in the door or not. This is what makes it overhead. Labor supervision is for the time to allow the project manager to meet specific subcontractors on site for this specific job and to go buy materials, order materials for this specific job, and thus would not fall under the calculation of general overhead. This fact is clearly outlined in the white pages. I mean, I don't have time to play around with these guys anymore. Like the kind of arguments they argue with us on is stupid. And at the end of the day,
they're not based in anything concrete. They're not based on anything that they can actually show you, right? Because if you ask them for their estimating guidelines outside of the programs, doesn't exist. But they still say per our guidelines. Well, but they'll never show them to you.
Well, there was a massive, and I do mean massive, like hundreds of people called into a meeting this week for AccuServe concerning guideline following and things like that there. And there's quite a few people in our group that saw me in there, were not expecting to see my shining face in there. And I'm one of the only people that spoke up and challenged them. And, you know, one of my challenges was—
What's AccuServe?
Code Blue.
Oh, okay.
And one of my challenges was, they're like, you know, you guys are not following the SOP that's set forth. And I said, I've read this damn book backwards and forwards. It's like 28 pages. I said nowhere in there, it says you have to use the default price list, which I do, but nowhere in there does it say that you have to use the default settings in the price list. And per the training I've gotten from the pricing and everything else, I'm applying trades correctly. How is that considered or viewed as a deviation from the default price list when the default price list is, you know, IN, for me, IN 8X?
Well, they can, yeah, and you can show, hey, this is the price list I used. That's the price list. I didn't change it.
And I mean, effectively, what like a lot of these TPAs even do is they have no clue. They have no clue how to do supporting events. They have no clue how to address market conditions or direct yields or even just simple labor trade changes. And so their default answer is, if I don't know how to do it, you have to have approval by the adjuster to do it. But then the adjuster has no clue what you're doing either. And it's an epidemic of complacency where the insurance companies are purposely doing as minimal training as possible so their people don't realize, oh, we're screwing people over because we're not allowing them to. It's
plausible deniability.
Yep.
It's like, well, I didn't know. Well, they didn't teach me that.
I'm very interested in seeing with this new Xactimate T&M when it comes out. Like T&M for large loss commercial makes sense. For a small residential,
anything else? No.
I don't see any adjuster being kosher with me turning in a time and material for a small mitigation or reconstruction. Well, you can't really do it for recon anyways, because how do you T&M beforehand? But I mean, I'm going to play with it. Like I'm going to do some T&M mitigations for residential and see what it comes out to, because, but one of the, I will tell everybody is, if you write a mitigation up, take a look at your labor summary and do the math. You know, how many guys you had out there at 8 hours. The last few estimates I've written, like they were out there for like, I had one guy, we were talking and he's like, I feel like I need to add some extra hours in because it's super been hot here and the heat wave going through and my guys are having to take extra breaks and stuff. And I said, okay, well, based on your estimate you already wrote, divide it by 8 hours, divide it by your 4-man crew out there. You've got like, it was like 5 days worth of labor on your estimate. How many days did it take you? 3. So, you know, how are you going to justify additional labor when you've already got more than enough hours in the estimate?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what will happen with T&M is that people will realize, oh, my big estimates I'm used to because it's itemized are going to be this big because my guys actually work efficiently and fast. And Xactimate's giving us way more hours than we need to on these jobs. Yeah,
T&M is going to penalize the guys that are efficient. It really is. So Restore Right says, would it be a good idea to write a script for stupid rebuttals? Because it's just getting dumber nowadays. You know, I'm surprised no one has written that book yet. Right? Yeah, I keep threatening to do that. But there's the problem is it just keeps evolving. But I think there should be a book. I think we should get together somehow and just a big list of objections matched with a big list of rebuttals.
I mean, the thing is this, I mean, and Andy, you might feel differently, but for me, I mean, my thing is that like, I'm so used to arguing this stuff that like, when I see the argument, I already know what to type. Having a big list of it for new guys absolutely sounds great. But once you've been doing this as long as like me and you, Andy, have, we don't need a list because we can type it out faster than it would take for us to look it up, copy it, paste it in there because we're so
I'm gonna work up some templates. And you know, I think it would be helpful for training purposes because you know, I hope to train myself out of a job. So I need people to know what I know. And just it's coming back with these specific, citing these specific reasons why this is justified, why this is justified. A lot of these rebuttals could be non-rebuttals if you actually put them as a note in the estimate. And when the adjuster says, we don't pay for it, or why did you do this? You can just ask them, did you read my estimate? Because most of the time they don't. They skip right to the end. Or they get it, you know, they send it off to a third-party auditor, and the auditor is not reading those notes. They don't care.
Most of the time, they just punch it through like an Ask Amy system of some kind, and it kicks back and says, not needed, not needed, and they copy it and they paste and say, here's your rebuttals.
Yep.
And they don't, I mean, I've put in matter tags, I put in F9 notes and links to photos, and people, they just don't look at them because, you know, your average adjuster, your average mid-grade adjuster, 50,000 or less, gets at least 4 new claims every day, 5 days a week. They do not, and then they do not have the time to review every estimate. It's why organization and why making your estimate read fluidly is so important to make your life easier. Because if you can read it like a book, you know, start off and I move the contents out of the room, ceiling work, wall work, floor work, painting, you know, whatever, as long as you have a system in place and it's not just haphazardly thrown in there and they can read it easier, you're going to get better responses on your estimates overall, because it's just a matter of they don't have a time to try to bounce back and forth. I've seen some people where it's like contents, disposal, equipment, demo, clean, extraction. Like, I mean, it's just, it reads like a fucking, you know, Where's Waldo book. And I don't have it. I have to, my head hurts. I'm like, this doesn't, I don't even understand what the hell's going on here. It's like you just haphazardly threw in line items. And
Well, because you know what's happening. I know exactly what's happening. They are not, they are developing the scope as they write in Xactimate. That's exactly how that's what's happening. Instead of developing that scope and then inputting it into Xactimate. And that allows you to be much more organized about your thoughts and much more organized about your presentation. I agree wholeheartedly. Every room should be formatted the same. Whether you start at the top and go down or the bottom and go up, you should do that same thing in every single room. Every room should start with the same thing and end with the same thing. So on mitigation, I like to end with my cleaning. I like to begin with my extraction and demolition. And those are headers. There's 5 or 6 headers in that template we use. And a templated Xactimate estimate is way easier and way quicker to read and understand. And it telegraphs to whoever's reading it that, hey, this person knows what they're doing.
You know, and that's also why I'm a big supporter of, if you guys like, Andy, I know you probably feel differently, but if you could be a graphical estimator in Xactimate, you will get I don't want to say you'll get away with, you will get such a better response to your estimates. Because like if I write an estimate, I'll put a light fixture in and then it'll have the light fixture as my code for that line item, and then cleaning that light fixture. And as much as it sounds tedious at times doing that, guys, like when, you know, I have no problem. I'll send an ESX file over in a heartbeat. It don't bother me one bit. It usually ensures that they're going to use my sketch. And when they get my estimate, and there's only like 2, maybe 3 line items in the whole estimate that has handwritten numbers in it, and that's it. There's not a lot of room for them to argue with you and say your calculation's wrong, because it's all based on the actual sketch itself, and it's not just me saying it's a 12 by 12 room or something, you know. And
yeah,
if you
anytime I see an actual calculation, like a 12 by 10 or something like that, instead of an F or an F divided by, it just tells me that is not a sophisticated, not an experienced estimator. They're being way too literal, and they're not using the program as intended. Xactimate is intended to be a graphical estimating program. You start every estimate with the sketch. And if you didn't start with the sketch, it would be a different story. But the reality is, yeah, I'm with you 100%. Do everything you can in the sketch, but still use a template in the rooms and make sure those items fall in the order you want them to fall in intentionally, not just haphazardly.
Yeah, I mean, every estimate I start with, if it's mitigation, the first section is contents and containment, whatever I got to do to prep that room. And then I work from a top-down method. So if there's any ceiling work, wall work, floor work, and then I do my cleaning aspects. And then I'll do my extraction before my ceiling work. I'll do extraction, then ceiling, demo, all my demo. And then I'll do my air movers, since air movers go in last. And I mean, I don't even put dehues anymore in the same rooms. I put my dehues in the main folder up top. So that way there I can calculate out my PPDs for the sketch, right? But I mean, I get, like I said, I don't have the only time really on my estimates I even have numbers on mitigation are my air movers, because I don't drop icons for air movers. But like if you're doing a reconstruction, I've wrote 1,000 line item estimates many times where there's 3 items on the entire estimate that's a hand calculation. Everything else is a wall surface, or it's door 2, or it's window 5. And
Yep.
it's when you start doing it, guys, it's a pain in the ass. It's tedious to get used to doing it that way. But once you get used to doing it, it's so second nature to do it that way that
But it also ensures you don't miss things. So especially when it comes to cleaning or painting and openings, I love cleaning openings just in the sketch, because I'm clicking, CLN OP or CLN OP greater than whatever. And then I know in that sketch, if I've missed something and I go back to it, it doesn't have that delete button. It's like, and just, you can see visually you've caught everything instead of trying to keep it in your head.
Yeah, and I mean, the nice thing is also, like I said, you set your door up, detached slab, detached hardware, detached, hinge, whatever your items are to that first door. You can copy that door and paste it all around your estimate, and it will carry those line items with you. If you do it with a toilet, you do it with a cabinet, and it will save you guys time in the long run. I mean, when you're doing things like this here, because I just helped one gentleman, he did a fire clean. And he didn't have any of his outlets, cleaning any of the outlets on there. And, make your first outlet up, copy it and paste it around the room. And it would take into account the cleaning the outlet. And, it wasn't any more searching, and it's things like that there that can make your life easier. You can even go so far as, oh, I got this other room up here. I'll copy, it's an identical room down here, just a little bit different shape. Copy this room, paste it up here, and then reshape it, and all the line items will stay connected.
Yeah, that's a great way to template. You build a template on a per job basis, but you use that same room multiple times. Yeah, it'll save you so much time.
And I mean, like I tell everybody, they're always going to have kickbacks. That's the job of the adjuster, is to make sure you're not overestimating. And, there are some things I had on my estimate today that I was talking about earlier. Replacing the floor, it was laminate on one side of the room, carpet in the other. I had floor leveling compound light throughout the whole thing. And the adjuster didn't give me any crap for it on the laminate flooring area, but he had issues with it on the carpeted area. And I was like, look, anytime if based on the condition of the slab that we can visually see, probably gonna need some in the carpeted area as well. But I'll be nice. I'll put PWI on here, and I'll submit the photos once we verify it, and that way there you can move this file forward. And if
you guys, if anyone out there wants to learn this shit, I'm actually giving another restoration crash course August 31st. So I just put the link there in the chat.
I'll try not to attend it and sidetrack you the whole day.
Right? we won't get anything done. Take a 2-hour class into a 4-hour class, easy.
But I mean, you guys, and it's these little things here, like understanding how, and there's little things also that people you're throwing your money away at because you're not, I don't want to say it's because you're being complacent. It's because you also just don't know, like how, the amount of people I talk to all the time who don't understand how to increase a line item to be an after hours charge. I mean, there's, remember guys, like when you're writing these estimates, unless you're using an after hours line item, everything is based on your guys working a standard 8-hour shift and then going home. So if you're in California, you're paying time and a half after 8 hours, and you got half your estimates just non after hour line items, you're losing money all day long. And
if you're not sending people home.
Yeah.
There's folks that understand their numbers. They're gonna send people home. When they're gonna know when they're in OT, and unless that job warrants it, they're gonna send them home. They're not gonna do any work on overtime.
And I mean, just in case here, I'll show real quick here, just since we're talking about this here, in case anybody's curious on how to figure out how to do a time an after hours charge for a non after hours line item. I'll show you guys real quickly the way to do it. I like how you always have me on share here. So CLN STD, we all clean the studs before we set our air movers, and it's after hours. Let's say it's 100 square feet. There is no after hours charge, and we all know that if you try to do heavy, you're going to get kicked back on it no matter what. So, we always do our normal, change it to the restoration guy doing the work. All you got to do is go in here and say, okay, per Xactimate, my normal hours is $1.24. I'm doing time and a half minus 124 because that's my original number. I need to increase this line item by 62 cents. Just add 62 cents to your market conditions, and boom, you will be at your time and a half for this line item. It's that simple, guys.
Well, then you got an F9 note it.
No, I just usually put in the opening statement, all work done after hours, or I'll put in the section, because I mean, it really depends on if I'm going to F9 note this specific line item or if it's going to be a chunk of them. Because like sometimes it's going to be a matter of maybe we started in after hours and we moved or normal hours and moved in after hours, or maybe it's all after hours anyways. I'll just put a big note at the very beginning that says all line items are after hours. Now, if you're, and that's one thing also is if you're doing an entire estimate after hours, one of the quickest, easiest, it's stupid. It sounds really stupid. But one of the things I do a lot if the entire job's after hours, I don't even worry about including the after hour line item into the estimate. I will literally just, let me reprice this so it works out the right way here. Let's just say that this entire job here was all done after hours. Just go into your components here, highlight everything. You have to write it all as normal. Don't have any after hour lines items in there, and then just change your rate there to your time and a half hour, and it'll factor everything out accordingly for you. And then just F9 at the very beginning. The entire estimate is written for after hours charges. I mean, adjusters will have a heart attack when they see that because they're like, you're not using after hours extraction. No, but the thing is here, I'll show you. 67.93 multiplied by 1.5 is 101.89. I will tell you, I've already done the math here in the past in this example. For whatever reason, even though this is what time and a half is, Xactimate's given us $102 on this price list. So I put in their number. Now all my CLNR line items are being charged at time and a half. And if I go into an actual line item here, let me find one here. We'll go to the guest bedroom here. Here's WTR trim, WTR TRIMA, and I'll do the same calculation. Like I said, it's a penny difference because Xactimate's actually giving me my time and a half at 120 on the after hours rate instead of the 181 that I did. But right there, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. If I wanted to change that there to the, if I wanted to change this to the 102, it'll read whatever reason it's not factoring it right, but I mean it's a penny difference. I mean, but you can go through here and see that 160. I'm a penny off because of the way the rounding system works.
Interesting.
And I mean,
so you found that it's easier to get paid on a modified line item than it is to get paid on an after hours line item.
Well, when all of this work here is after hours, I can find these all because these are WTR line items. I go into the plumbing aspect here. None of that's going to be after hours. There's no after hour charge for any of that. And there's no after hour charge for HEPA vacuuming or clean the floors. So, like I said, I mean, I always go through, do my normal CLNRs all the way across. And then I can just do my component change simply down here and boom, everything's CLNR'd.
Mhm.
All right, it's all a time and a half, and it works out the same. Most adjusters have no clue how you did that though. But I mean, think about it though. I mean, I know everybody. You go into a bathroom here, everybody is charging for caps. You know, now granted, it's going to be, like I said, you're going to do CLNR to drop your price down. But if it's after hours, like you've got to have, and this is all messed up. Don't worry about the quantities, guys, because I've been playing. This is a play around estimate I've been playing around in. But if this is a 2 count of the caps here, well, that's how much it is for the water guy. Well, now that I have that line item as time and a half, it's going to give me the right price. And I mean, it's a good way. If your entire estimate is all after hours, in a heartbeat, it's way better.
Okay. Nice.
But I mean, guys, like I said, I mean, you guys, one of the biggest things I'll tell everybody is this here. If you go to your labor summary and you look at how many hours on a job like this here I have, you take your 115749 minus your supervisor hours, which is 2.67, divide that by 8 hours per day. We got 4 guys out there. Xactimate's giving you 36 days to do that job in. Something tells me, either you had more guys or you're way overestimating there on your numbers. So, but this is a great way. You do your math here, and then once you get to that,
or keep in mind, we should have no shame on making really good margins. So that tells me there's margin built in. And given the fact that the majority of this industry is waiting 60, 90, 120 days to get paid, and even then they're not getting paid in full, I think there should be no shame in doing work that is highly profitable. That's the point. That's the only reason we do this work, is because it is profitable. And when it becomes being not profitable, that's when you see people dropping out of the market, markets being underserved because they've been beat up so much. You can't get people to work in certain markets because they just can't make enough money.
And I agree with you there, but if you're one of those guys that like to pre-estimate before someone takes a job on and give them an estimate, which is fine. Using your labor summary, it will give you a good idea. This is how many hours I had. I don't know if anyone saw it. I was taking out the monitoring hours because I don't want to count that as well part of the job. So just for the demo aspect of the job, I have 1,100 hours divided by 8 hours. I want to be done in a week. I want to be done 5 days. Xactimate says that I'm probably going to need about 29 guys out there to get that much work done in that amount of time. I mean, granted, this job took like 3 weeks. So obviously this number's divided by 15.
Well, it's 21 days. It's not far off.
No, because they didn't work after hours. So 15,
okay.
5, 10. So they had 10 guys out there. And guess what? Lo and behold, when I called my guy, they had 10 guys out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Xactimate can get pretty accurate on how many hours you need to have on a job, which is why I'm always a big supporter. If you do not have to, if you can figure out some way, somehow to do a line item instead of just pure labor, it's going to be more accurate, because when you do pure labor, it does not apply any supporting events. Whereas
right,
it does. And
Xactimate is a powerful tool. They've been doing this a while. They've been at it for a couple decades now. They're good. They are really good. They got it down so well that you can. I do. That's where the basis of my whole supervision calculator spreadsheet is the fact that Xactimate is really good at figuring out how much labor it's going to take to do the job. Given you can always change the yield up or down for specific situations, but in general, if you take that total labor calculation, including supporting events, and you divide that by the size of your crew, you're going to get a very accurate timeline of how long that job's going to take.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, it is. It's one of those things where, I mean, you know, it's the more you are the more accurate you can be when you write these here, the more it's defendable. God forbid you have to go to court, it'll hold up. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we always have to think about in our heads is if this goes to court, can I defend this? And a lot of people, the issues they have in their estimates is the adjuster calls up, "Hey, Andy, why do you charge for this?" And you go, well, that's because what the text wrote,
Yeah, exactly. Because
I guarantee you, Andy gets on the phone, I get on the phone, we're like, well, here's why. Let me lay it down for you. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version real quick here of why. And it's that kind of a mentality. If you have it and you are able to spit it out like that, there you will.
Yeah, if you have a response ready like that, that's going to shut 9 out of 10 down. They're going to be like, okay. But if you go, and you give them just a bullshit excuse, the minute you open that door to doubt in your work product, that door swings wide open. You've got zero credibility for the duration of that relationship. You are tainted now in the eyes of that, whoever that is on the other end of the phone. So that's why it's so important just to be 100% honest upfront and have a reason for everything you do. If you don't have a reason for it, it has no business being in your estimate or invoice. Period. End of story.
And as I've always said, Andy, I am always too busy to talk on the phone. You are better off just emailing me over your issues. And then that way you have a written documentation of what their grievances are. You can take your time and construct a proper response.
Yep.
And then you have it written down. I've seen too many adjusters who on the phone, yeah, I'll approve that. And then, 6 weeks later when the work's done or 6 months later, I don't remember approving this. We had a phone conversation. Did you record it? Nope. Okay, then.
Nope. Didn't happen. Did not happen.
I do not agree with ever lying to somebody or bullshitting them. But when an adjuster calls, you always bullshit them. Say, I'm too busy talking on the phone. Email me.
Yeah, send me an email. Let's do it that way. All right, Joe, better late than never. Thanks for showing up. I forget what this stretch is called, but I'll show it to you. I'll send you a link. It saved my life because I was having lower back issues, sitting down way too much. I thought I went through it. There was a period of time, I think it was 2000 and whenever, where I was like, I got rid of I changed office chairs 3 or 4 times. I changed the seat in my truck because I thought that's what was, throwing me off. And what it was, I was just sitting down too much and not stretching properly.
14 hours a day, 7 days a week for the past 2 years will destroy your hips.
Yeah, you got to stand up. You got to get yourself a stand-up desk, my friend. So, all right. Well, yeah, my wife says I should get one of those, but I don't think I'd ever run it.
I mean, I'm worried about even if I try to walk it, like I'd be bouncing too much and I just get pissed off with it. But
right,
it'd be nice. So
even this, I mean, look, I don't put hardly anything on it, and the whole thing shakes. So whatever. All right, next week, I had some people say they couldn't get signed up for the roundtable, so I reinstituted a registration. For a long time, I took the registration off. I think I'm just gonna if you can't figure out how to get registered, maybe you're not smart enough to be on the roundtable. Just saying. So get yourself registered. Hope to see more than just you and I next week. And yeah, man. Hey, Joe, stay in touch. We'll see you.